Quick disclosure, guys, this video itself is going to be only the deck profile and not exactly a full tournament report. I might mention games here and there, but for a full tournament breakdown, I'm going to have that in a separate video linked down below once it's ready, and you guys can go watch that. But I figured some people might just want the individuals, so I went ahead and split them up. Enjoy the video, guys. Thanks. Welcome, my friends, to another Alliteration gaming video. My name is Levi, and today I have a super awesome video for you guys today. I'm bringing you guys my third place Legendary Wolf Games Omaha Provisional Ochaco Meteor 1-dot deck profile. So, Ochaco 1. Why did I choose Ochaco 1? Well, I guess to really truly go into that, we kind of have to look at Ochaco 1 herself. So, Ochaco 1 is a 6-hander with 27 health. She's got Air, Chaos, and Life. We are playing her under Air for the sake of this deck profile, and she's got two very powerful abilities. The first is a once per turn response that when your charge or high attack resolves, you can just send it straight into your momentum. And then her other ability lets her commit herself. If you have one or more momentum, you can get 3 speed to your current attack, and then you can add any momentum to your hand. Now, you don't have to add the momentum, you can just commit for 3 speed, but in this deck, you almost always add the momentum. This can also be done during both players' turns, so if you want to pick up a specific block zone or something like that, it's a very, very powerful application there. However, the real thing about this character is you do need to remember your momentum. I personally always keep them in an alphabetical order, so I can always kind of reference that, but again, that does require you still knowing which cards individually are in there, and also keeping track of what momentum is random between stuff like Wealthy Aspirations or just any face downs you put in general that you don't know about. So that is the character, and the reason I kind of picked this character was because I really just kind of wanted to find the best way to play a Meteor Shower deck. If you're familiar with the Mina deck profile at all, my Ashido Mina Chaos deck, it kind of just does momentum shenanigans, you know, your Gravlets, your Meteor Showers, stuff like that, and I really like that playstyle, so I set out to make this deck. However, this is a very different deck than kind of the more mainstream, popularized Ochaco decks that have kind of been cemented as really powerful since Tamron Cardwell won the 1K with it, and we've kind of seen a lot of those, you know, the big card decks, the long lastings, the specialized sound waves, you know, into the home runs and the 1.3s, you know, etc. I tested that list for quite a while, but ultimately I really just disliked checking the 2s. I didn't like them in my deck. I'm still a new MHA baby, so having 2s in my deck is still super scary to me. And that deck also doesn't really synergize very well with Meteor Shower, which is my favorite card. So I really wanted to figure out how to make just kind of like a Meteor Shower deck. So eventually, that's kind of how I came to this list. It's like a very tight, it's a 52 card list. It's a very tight deck that just seeks to find all of its Meteor Showers like as fast as possible and just consistently make like a 6 or 7 attack turn by the end of it. Not necessarily relying on super big attacks, but just stringing a lot of really good pokes over time. And that's kind of what it's out to do. I also really like this idea for a deck because I was driving 14 hours to a big event and I wanted a deck that wasn't really going to brick or wasn't really going to flop on me. And I also especially didn't want to drive 14 hours to check 2s all day. So that's kind of the ideas that birthed this deck. So with that all being said, let's just get right into the deck itself. Starting off the attack lineup, we of course have 4 copies of Meteor Shower. This is pretty much the bread and butter of the deck, and the whole deck is pretty much designed around abusing this card as much as possible. So this card is a 4 high for 5 with 2 really nice abilities. It says you can discard a momentum to add another Meteor Shower from your discard pile into your momentum. And then from the momentum, you can discard a card and add it to your hand. So basically, we wanted to generate a bunch of momentum as fast as we can, go through our deck as fast as we can, find as many of these as we can, and just basically say, hey, this is how many attacks I have, like, deal with it. And of course, it goes to your momentum face up, so you can activate the abilities. So it's really good with Ochaco, because you can kind of just like, Ochaco is what makes like one of these like 3 attacks, even more depending on what you have, because you can just kind of like open with this, move it in, play another attack, pick this up, you know, and then just kind of do shenanigans, or even just, you know, commit, pick it up, play another one. It gets even crazier when you have the Gravlets. The rest of the attacks kind of like make more sense with this card, but for the most part, this card is our main engine, and it's how we just kind of always make sure that we have a bunch of attacks when it's time to start finishing out a game on our kill turns. Then we kind of have really just kind of our best, like, I don't know, this card just does everything, right? I don't really know how to label this. Jolt just does everything. Jolt is a 3 mid for 4 that says when it's completely blocked, it still deals 1 damage, and when it's in the momentum, you can flip it to selectively commit a rival foundation. It also has stun 1 and EX2. This card's really crazy, man. So pretty much, generally what you want to do in this deck is you want to open with this, say, I don't care if you block it, I'm going to Ochaco it in anyway, play something else, flip this, commit one of their things, Ochaco, pick this thing up, and then play this as your next one, and it'll still go back into momentum face up. That way you essentially get like a stun 3 in total out of it. And then it's just great, you know. You'll just like, if you send in the Meteor Shower after it, you make the Meteor Shower a 7 high for 5. They probably can't or don't want to block that, because then they just can die to like any of your because then they can die to any of your bombs. And so it's just like a bunch of really annoying things that like your opponent just doesn't want to block. Like these just aren't very valuable cards to be blocking. And then as the deck keeps stringing along, you realize, oh, nothing is really worth blocking aside from like the 1.3 million. So I kind of should be blocking these just like so his game plan is not accelerating. But then I have to make sure I don't leave myself open to his bomb nuking me. That's kind of what's really annoying about blocking this deck, is you really don't know how it's going to string out against you. And almost every attack is not worth blocking, which means they're all actually worth blocking. It's just never super valuable to do it against any of them. There's a bunch of annoying pokes, really. And then in a very similar vein, we have 4 copies of Zero Gravity Lift. This is just our throw in the deck. However, it does say it goes to the momentum face up, and when it's in the momentum, you can remove it after your attack resolves, add it to your momentum. So it's just another use of our characters. So like, it's really crazy. If you open this as your first attack, Ochaco it in, and then play your next attack, you can grab lift Ochaco, or you can grab lift, send it in again, and basically you just keep getting to do that. It's really crazy, going like lift into lift, and then Ochaco responds, then like lift, and then lift into the lift, and then lift into something else. Like, it's so much progression clearing, it's so much cheating, and every time it's just a really annoying 6 damage throw that, like, again, your opponent just like doesn't want to block. It's just extremely annoying because it's going to the momentum anyway, whether it's now or later, it goes anyway, and it's just super frustrating. And having something like Jolt means you also get to like commit down wall clings and answers like that, which is, again, really crazy applications. Then this is our main kill condition. We have 4 copies of 1.3 million volts. This is a 3 low for 5, and it has stun 1, and you can you can commit one of your foundations to make them commit a foundation, and then you can give it 1 damage for every committed foundation. So this card's really crazy. On our kill turns, this is usually what we go ahead and use our Ochaco Enhance on, so it becomes a 6 low, 7 low if we've got the earphone jack, which is pretty much unblockable. If they're tapped out, it is quite literally unblockable. They can only check a 6, right? So it is completely unblockable if they're tapped out. So that's kind of the goal where you want to get them. Again, that's where stuff like, Jolt into Ochaco responds, pick it back up into Jolt, into this. Like, you basically can just get them tapped down pretty uninteractively, and then just kill them with this. Also, the thing about Ochaco is if you have one of these, you can open with it, send it in, play other attacks. At some point, pick this up, and they're like, oh, I have to make sure I can block it again, right? And you won't get to put the +3 speed on it because you're committing to pick it back up in the first place. But it's, again, they still have to deal with it 2 times. And if you have 2 of them, you actually have 3 of them, right? Because Ochaco, eat it. Next one, Ochaco on this one's 3 speed. Pick this up, play the next one again. Like, just really crazy stuff. Like, that's kind of the power of this character, is that any attack you draw, you actually have 2 copies of if you want. So it's really crazy. Chaining 1.3s is pretty much almost always how you kill someone in this deck, and it's very efficient at doing so. And then, last but not least, we have the alleged best card in the deck: 2 copies of Tongue Smack.
Alright, and there's the smack.
Tongue Smack is a 4 high for 4 that says if your character's committed, it gets 2 damage. If something has left your card pool this turn, you can draw a card. So it's a really good attack. I'd kind of always been eyeing it with Ochaco 1. It just never really seemed like he could make the cut with the other attacks, because this is a very tight deck, so you can't play a lot of tech attacks like this. Until the day before the actual provisionals, they had a team draft tournament where you buy 1 box and you make 3 decks for your team. And we pulled like 4 Jolts and 4 Amphibious. So I was like, I'm gonna just make Ochaco 1 since I know how to play it anyway. And we got 2 of these into the deck, and it was putting in so much work in the actual application that I was like, man, maybe this really does need to find its way into the deck. And then I'm sitting here writing my deck list at like 3 a.m. the night before, and my good friend Daryl says, hey Levi, I have an XR. So it went right into the deck, and it was pretty much the best card all day. This card killed so many people, but also like flowed so well, because like basically I realized that if I just opened Jolt and Tongue Smack, it was like just the best opening every single day, all day, because you just go Jolt, stun 1, it's annoying, 3 mid for 4, block it if you want, Ochaco response it in, play the Tongue Smack, flip something, or flip this and commit whatever you want, commit +3 speed to this, draw a card, there's something left, and then it gets 2 damage, so it becomes a 7 high for 6, and then you just play the Jolt again, and then you get a stun 1 again, and it's like, again, like all of these are just like not optimal attacks to block. Like the first one's gonna go in anyway, this one's gonna go in anyway, I mean they're both gonna go in anyway, they're both just like 3 minutes for 4, and this is a 7 high for 6, and like, then like if they are just like goofy and block this, then you get to just send in like the 1.3 that's probably unblockable now, and then they're like, well I messed up. So just a bunch of like really frustrating attacks that your opponent's not really allowed to block under optimal circumstances. And like also like it draws you a card. Like this is just like the best flow card in the deck, and I very quickly realized this. Probably one of the only changes I'd be making to this list after the weekend is potentially putting in a third, definitely a third, maybe even a fourth copy of this card, because it's just so strong. Like a 4 diff for 6 damage that draws a card is just insane. Like that is some really crazy levels of value, and I very quickly realized that after actually playing it in the tournament, and I'm really upset that I didn't spend more time playing with the card. It was certainly the MVP add-in.
Yeah, I really like this Ochaco deck a lot.
What
we're seeing so far from
the tongue smack cycling in just putting like it does the thing I like about my 4 diff attacks, which is it progresses the game. And it it cycles, it progresses the game, it's just full utility.
But yeah, so this is the attack lineup. Like it's a very straightforward attack lineup. Like your meteors are your engines, and then like your jolts, your lifts, and your tongue smacks are like, these are your poke damage, because like they're all super annoying and difficult to block. So these are all your pokes, and then 1.3, double triple 1.3 is just how you finish people off for the most part. Or you just like string them to death. Like if they're really low, like that's the cool thing too, is right, like if your opponent ever lets themselves get like to basically 6 or like 5 or lower, then basically like you can just start stringing your meteors and stuff, and they all are lethal, right? And you can just say like, well screw it, I'm just play all these super cheap ones and all these 4 diffs, and it's really strong just being able to play like a huge string of 4 diffs. Like you can check like 4 or 5 threes on your kill turn, and if you have your lifts and stuff, it's like actually okay. Like it's literally fine. You only really need to check well for like 1 big bomb, which is like your kill 1.3 if it gets to that. So that's what's kind of one of the really strong parts about this deck. It's very consistent. It's really easy to open like grab lift jolt or tongue smack jolt like every turn. That's kind of just what you want your first attack turn to be like, and then most of the time that gets like 10 or so damage in, gets your momentum set up, and then you're ready to just, you can survive by like flipping your jolts to commit their stuff, or you just survive normally, and then your jolts flip, commit their stuff, they all turn into meteor showers, and then you kind of just get it in there. It's a very straightforward attack plan of the deck, and it's really good at executing that like every time. Next, for the assets real quick, we got 2 copies of Earphone Jack. This is just a really nice weapon asset. It's it pretty much just says when you play an attack, you mill the top card of your opponent's deck, and if it's a charge attack, you get +1 speed. So everything gets a speed except for the tongue smack. And also when your attack deals damage, any attack deals damage, you can commit this to ready one of your foundations that you haven't ready yet. So this card is just really nice. Like it's never really dead. It's a 1 high block if you need, and like when you like it, just giving all your stuff 1 speed is really annoying. Meteors being 5 high is super annoying. Like it just clears a lot of really solid thresholds. Shock being 7 low is like extremely annoying. 6 low, like I don't know, like if they leave their character tapped, like untapped still, they can like have a 1 low and check a 6 or some like Christmas land scenario, but this just takes all that out, and most of the time building assets, especially really early in an aggro deck, can be kind of sus, because you really want to build your foundations to commit stuff. But at some point, one of your attacks will deal damage, because these will always deal damage, and you can just use this to ready a foundation. So it's like a foundation as well. So there's kind of just no reason like not to jam it into the deck. 2 copies in a 52 card deck. You see it fairly often, and it's perfectly fine. I kind of wish I could even play like a 3rd one maybe, but the deck space is just too tight for that. Like I said, this deck has to stay small because it's a meteor shower deck, and the more cards in your deck, the less likely you are to see all your meteor showers super fast, right? So that's kind of the design philosophy when it comes to building this deck. And now for the foundations. 4 copies of Specialist of Sound. When they play an attack, commit it for -3 speed. It's just extremely good. And also, anytime you check this card, you can look at the top card of your deck. So like say you play a card, and then you go, okay, check, and it's this, you can right then and there look at the top card of your deck, so you kind of know what's coming next. That information is really helpful, especially when you play stuff like Destined for mainstream success, and it's just really good. It doesn't have a great block, but it has a low block, and this deck is very starved for lows, so this card is just insane all across the board. Next, I kind of want to talk about both of these at the same time. So we played 4 copies of Charged Up and 4 copies of Wealthy Aspirations. These are kind of the same cards in different ways. Charged Up says when your charge attack or your charge or stun attack deals damage, you can remove this to pick anything from your momentum and or anything from your discard pile and shove it into your momentum. And then this card says, response, flip, when a card goes to your momentum, you can add the top card deck to your momentum. It can also remove itself to look at your momentum and turn one face up, which is really handy for like reusing jolts sometimes. That actually won me like 2 games. That saved my bacon, getting that extra commit during their turn 2 times. 1 low is really good, 3 high is not so good, but regardless, these cards kind of serve the same purpose of just like accelerating our aggro game plan. Like 1 random momentum is extremely valuable in this deck because that basically means that it's going to turn into a meteor at some point, which is really nice. And if anything, we can also just commit Ochaco and pick it up. It's like, hey, it's basically like a free draw, right? It's just a random draw, but it's still really good. And then Charged Up, letting us put key pieces in, like more lifts or jolts. Putting either of these in is just like crazy. If you need a 1.3 to kill them and you don't have it, you can charge this up in and then Ochaco to pick it up. Like Ochaco's picking up any momentum with this card. It's just a really strong interaction. I know it might seem a little obnoxious to have both of these at 4 copies, but they're very integral pieces of like setting up our Meteor Shower turn and just like getting our really important flow pieces in this deck. Like this deck does not play sound waves, so we don't get to selectively draw from our discard pile. So having Charged Up to like give us these or give us our first meteor if we need be to like start our chain is just really strong. It's very powerful. It is a little greedy, but then when you understand like the context of the deck itself, it's like actually not very greedy at all. And then we have 4 copies of Walkling. We kind of just have to play 4 copies of this card because we only have like 12 low blocks in this deck. It's really bad. It's not good at all. So we kind of just have to play this card in our deck. It's like okay, like it says you can flip it if this attack is blocked, it deals no damage. So if you have an off zone block, it just it blocks it fully basically. And if they have any throws, it's really nice hate against them. Which is like really nice because like kind of everyone plays throws. In the Jiro matchup, it's extremely important for keeping both of these cards out of Jiro's momentum because they can't snap it in like Ochaco does. So it's really good against those cards. For those reasons necessary, and we kind of just have to play 4 of it. It's really like not negotiable. This like air does not cover its low blocks very well, and we can't even play most of the low blocks because like they're not the best cards, and with our small deck size we can only really be playing the best cards. We can't really have filler just because it's a block zone, right? So Walkling, very necessary. For the spams, we have 4 copies of Amphibious. If a card has left your card pool this turn, you can ready it once per turn. It's just crazy. It's 2 foundations in our character because like we will always from the second attack on have had a card leave. So it's just 2 foundations. It's just very powerful. 4 copies of Destined for Mainstream Success. This is like maybe the best spam in the game. It says you can flip it to name a card type, and if the top of card of you reveal the top. If it's that card type, you add it to your hand. So sometimes it's a free draw. Sometimes it just ensures that we have a good check on top of our deck because we just flip and name attack. If it's an attack, cool, we drew a card for free. If it's not, we confirm that we have a 5 on, or maybe a 4, right? We confirm that we have a non-3 check on the top of our deck, which is very powerful for knowing when you can go in and when you can overcommit without having to risk the punishment of overcommitting. So it's really good. If we ever Specialist of Sound and know our next and it's good or bad, if we need the card we can pick it up regardless. It's just really good. And then the last one if we have is 2 copies of Observant Student. This just says you can flip it to look at the top card of your deck, and it's actually our only deadlock card in the entire deck. Commit, if a card has left your card pool, you can pick up any ranged attack from the discard pile and add it to your hand. So that can be nice because it can go ahead and give us a 1.3, Meteor, or a Tongue Smack. All really good cards if we're trying to orchestrate a kill turn, which if your opponent's in deadlock, double or triple 1.3 can still really easily kill them. I kind of wish this card was at 4 copies. The effect is not that great, but it's like okay enough combined with the 1 low block that it's in the deck. Regardless. Again, we have 4, 8, 12, 14 lows in a 52 card deck. It's not a lot, guys. But again, we have 4 Walklings, and Ochaco can make us able to reuse our lows or reuse our Walklings if we really need them by sending them to the momentum and then picking them up, right? So it's not that bad, but this is kind of the closest thing we have to a filler card. In a lot of matchups, this is one of the things that I would side out, because effect-wise, it's the only thing that's not really like integral to the deck. And if I don't need my lows in the matchup, it can definitely go. But it's a really nice solid 2 of. You could consider just cutting this card entirely and playing the tight 50 card deck. You could do the same thing with Earphone Jack, I think, but I think these are nice enough to warrant 52 cards being okay. And then for the zeros, 4 copies, of course, of Requesting Assistance. If you have a momentum, you can flip this and ready any other foundation that has not been readied. So it's just really good. I mean, it's got a great block. Again, it's just another amphibious. It's just 2 foundations in our character, because from the second attack onwards, we will always have momentum. So very powerful. And then to round it out, 2 copies of Release to round out the zeros. It just says you can pop one of your foundations to give your block check +2. So it's just really nice. It just helps us defend a little more. Being a much smaller Ochaco deck, we kind of cut a lot of the really powerful like defensive tech options. Like we don't have stuff like Rescue Completed and all. So having a couple releases is just nice in there, but basically that is the main deck list. It is extremely tight, it's extremely straightforward, and it's very consistent. The game plan is to just like have a really nice opening flow turn with like Lift, Jolt, and Tongue Smack. And then once you're ready, just kind of orchestrate like, you know, your 5, 6, 7 attack turns, basically just based on how hard you built and how well you check by stringing your meteors and stuff like that along. It's pretty much almost impossible to like draw dead in this deck, because the second you find like 1 meteor or like 2 attacks, 1 grav lift, it becomes so easy for it to become 3, 4, 5 attacks because of our character's text. Very powerful, and that is just kind of the design philosophy of the deck. And I wanted to build something like this for an event like Omaha because I felt like it was just really consistent at doing that. Yes, that's the whole kind of like design philosophy of the deck, and why I wanted to make something like this for an event like Omaha, something that would just kind of like never fail me. Like I could always fail my deck, of course, because like no one is perfect, but if my deck can never fail me, that is a lot more cushion room when it comes to playing in a long strung out big event. So I kind of want to talk about the sideboard next. Of course, the sideboard is like pretty straightforward, but there's kind of some things that I would also change about it after playing the whole deck. So first things first, I played 4 copies of Encouraging Training Partner. This card says you can flip to change an attack's speed to 4, and it has a response for from Adoria and Uraraka that when you take 5 or more damage, you can commit it to gain a health. This is mostly there for like Jiro and then just anything else that wants to make really big fast things. This is like basically how I plan on dealing with like Jiro's home run comets and stuff like that. It's just a really nice defensive piece, and against anything that has a lot of speed reduction as well. So like water deck sitting there and like Rescue Completed and sapping my speed all day, I can change my own speed to 4 and then Ochaco for 3 more. Just really good, really nice speed hate. Anything that's like evil gazing me a lot, just Specialist of Sounding me a lot. These pretty much come in all day every day for those decks. Then I had 2 copies of Exploding Pride. This is a 4-low for 3 attack that says if it's blocked, they discard their momentum, and you burn them for 1 for every momentum they have. I thought I wanted more copies of this card originally. I thought this was going to be like the card also against Jiro, but also against just any air deck in the format, because like there's just so much air right now, right? But so basically what happened round 1 is I fought Sean O'Brien playing Air Jiro. I sided out my Tongue Smacks for 2 copies of this card. I saw 2 copies of this card, and both times I was like, huh. This like was a nice like 4 or 5 damage move basically, because it burns for like 2, 3, and then they're not allowed to block it. But then I was like, realistically though, I think I would have just rather just be my Tongue Smack. And then I didn't side this in the rest of the day against my other like 5 Jiro opponents, because I was like, I think having my good flow card that synergizes well with my deck is just better. So I thought this was going to be like the MVP all day, but I honestly just think I would cut this from my sideboard. I just don't think I'm playing any attacks that like, you know, aren't already so like good and strong and synergistic with my deck, that like this like unblockable 4 or 5 is like that much better. So this would probably become like 2+ ultras or something like that. Next, I played 2 copies of Concentrate. This card basically says, response, remove itself and destroy a foundation. When they play an action card, cancel the ability of the action card. Also, you can enhance and put it straight to your momentum if you've taken damage. But basically, this is mostly here for anyone abusing plus ultra a little too much, and then also for All Might 2 and 3 decks playing the Capture Evildoers, because that card like really messes me up. and then also for Tokoyami playing Dark Shadows. Also Eraser, you can cancel Eraser if you so desire. He doesn't really do much against your character, but it is a really good matchup for you. But you can do it if you so desire. So I think this card covers like a huge branch of the meta. I sided it in both times against my Sero opponent because they were playing a lot of plus ultras and that was kind of their game plan. And then I also sided in against Tokoyami. It didn't help me very much. I still like very much died, but that wasn't any fault because of Concentrate. Obviously Concentrate is not great if they draw 3 Dark Shadows, but when they only draw 2, like is what normally happens, it is still a really strong piece. I would definitely keep 2 in. I don't know if I'd put any more, but it is still, it's really good at the 2 copies, and I definitely put in a lot of work. And then to round it out, I put 2 copies of Erring and Disposition in here. This card just says commit to give a punch -3 speed. So it's good against punch decks, and it's also nice as a low block in case we need to side into my emergency lows. This was also a really great side in against the my Sero player because he was playing the Void Sero with like, you know, the jabs and the chops and all. So it's pretty nice in those scenarios. I like this card a lot in the side. Really, like I said, the only thing I would probably change is I'd probably just make 2 of these 2 plus ultras. We kind of like cover plus ultra things when it comes to this card, but this card was just so useless all day, and I really just think I'd rather keep my attacks in the deck. So this would probably go, but I think the rest would probably stay. But like as you can see, I did not play any plus ultras main or side all day, and it really didn't hinder me very much. Like the way this deck works is you kind of want to use you go through your momentum like very efficiently for your meteors and stuff. So something like plus ultra, like it's a nice play when it comes up, but at the same time it's not that necessary for our general attack plan, if that makes sense. It's just kind of a nice power card, but I was trying to trim every ounce of fat that I could from this deck, and nice power card is just kind of where it went. Maybe it's nice enough to where it should remain in the deck. I don't think that's like completely non-negotiable, but for the purpose that I was making this deck, I chose to leave the plus ultras out. And as far as other things I chose to leave out, I had a Hagakure in my side last minute, and I did take it out last minute because I just felt like it wasn't going to be that relevant. It is hard to side out of Ochaco in this deck because the whole main deck is like very tailored towards her snap momentuming things, but maybe being Hagakure is like good enough in those matchups where it is good, you know, against the Tokoyamis, against your 5-handers, your Nomu, anything like that. Like not matchups that are particularly terrible for you, but also like I just didn't have any practice siding this character in, so I was like, let me just like call it safe and just like not worry about siding it. Then there's a lot of attacks that came in and out of the deck as I was kind of trying to find the most efficient, consistent lineup. Long Lasting was in the deck for a while. You know, we got that Tamara card well signed, Long Lasting. Long Lasting was in the deck as well, but when Home Run Comet left the deck, this used to be 2 copies of Home Run Comet was the Tongue Smacks as like an alternate finisher. But I just felt the Tongue Smack was better as a flow card and then just relying on 1.3s or just strings in general to finish. So Long Lasting doesn't really have a place in this deck. Blitz Rush was here for a long time too, but I think 1.3 is just way better, and it's harder to play around 1.3 than it is Blitz Rush. So, and like again, we eject our momentum very efficiently for Meteor. So Home Run, again, was originally our alternate card right here as our alternate kill condition, but most of the time I ended up more so using it as a flow card just to put a momentum in, and the Tongue Smack was just a lot better the more I tested it out. Again, this was the crazy mad scientist last minute change, but I'm so glad I did it. Surge is a card that I really like to play as well, but I just don't really have the room for it, but it is very sick in this deck. It's a lot of free meteors in here momentum, and that's cool. The low flash is nice too, but when it comes to like our jolt smack jolt, or our lift smack lift jolter, you know, like that kind of like opening plan, this card just doesn't really support that because it's a flash and we can't enhance on it. But it is a nice card, but I left the deck for a reason. Instant Explosive, very greedy card. I don't think I've played in this deck, even though it is really cool with these guys. Like, we have so much snap momentum already that piling more just actually kind of defeats the purpose of it. And of course, the big one, Sound Waves, was originally, you know, in the original list. You know, this was like the card, right? But this deck was pretty much made to say, hey, is it possible for me to play an Ochaco 1 deck that completely rejects this card? And that's kind of what I set out to build and what I set out to prove. And I feel really comfortable with what I made as a result of that thinking. And then I'm probably putting more tongue smacks in. I already have more XRs. Probably putting more tongue smacks in after this. If anything, this might just go in as a 19th attack, and then we go up to 53 cards maybe. I don't know. But I think there should at least be 3 tongue smacks in this deck, because it kind of just ended up being the best. Again, it's the best flow card in the deck. I really just want to draw Jolt, Smack, Jolt every single first attack turn. And then foundations-wise, Rescue Completed. God, I wish I could play this card, but I really just don't have the room for it. It's an awesome, insane defensive card, but I just don't know what I'm, you know, I just don't know what I'm sticking in for it, right? We have 4, 8, 12, 16, 4, 8, 12, 16. Already we're even on our spams and non-spams, so if you want to up the deck size and fit this card in, I don't fully disagree with that, but I think that playing the smaller deck, again, to find my meteors and to find my ideal attack change was just better. Short Circuit was another kind of cool card that I thought about maining or siding for a while, but eventually I just kind of thought that, like, hey, the only thing this really stops is stuff like Nomu and whatnot, which is like already a very, very, very insanely efficient and good, easy matchup for this character, and especially for this build as a whole. And then every other scary deck, their big stuff is all charges, right? Like, I can't put a 1.3 down, I can't put a Blitz Rush down, I can't put any of Jiro's things down, so like, why play this stat reset that already doesn't work against most of the field when I have the better stat reset in the encouraging training partner, right? And then Shock Treatment is a card that I kind of want to look at putting into the main deck. More Selective Committal is really nice. I think it could be a really cool, like, 1 or 2 of. I just don't know where it's going to go. It's possible this deck goes to 55, and I just put in, like, another Tongue Smack and then maybe, like, 2 Shock Treatments and, like, call it a day. But I don't know. I have to think about that some more and whether it's really, really worth it. And then Infinite Potential is another card that I thought about just to cover, like, you know, the poorness of my block zones, you know, not having any lows. But I just kind of realized I could just play some decent lows instead of playing this card and basically accomplish the same thing. So guys, that is everything I have to say about this deck. If you sat through this entire video, thank you so much. This deck was a really, really, really awesome labor of love that I put together very much specifically for the Omaha event. And I wish I'd have gotten to test more with it, especially stuff like the tongue smacks, but overall, it did what I set out to do. I felt like I played like the exact same game plan every single game, and I was able to do that, and I was able to change it up when I needed to as well, right? Like, you have the consistency of being able to do the same thing every game, but also the flexibility to do something else if you have to, and that's really what I wanted to make for a big event deck like this. So guys, this is my Ochaco list. Like I said, for the full tournament report, there is going to be another video, probably a link in the description below at some point once that's finished as well. But for now, I really wanted to get this deck profile out to you guys so you could see the spice that is Meteor Shower Turbo Ochaco. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Later.
This is a really strong lead on this build. Ooh.
Oh, the tongue smack. Okay.
Tongue smack. We're gonna. That's okay. So
I mean, it makes perfect sense for Ochaco.